Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the Martin Center Research Seminar. This is our second session for the Easter term. The seminar series has been running now for 52 years, so it's a long-running series, and we're honored to welcome today both Marzia Zad and Raha Ashrafi of Ashrafi and Zad. And their research I find very interesting, and their architecture as well. First, because it spans both research and built practice, and also because of the cultural dialogue. So they'll talk to us about transformative spaces. But I was fortunate enough to know Marzia personally through our work together at the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia. And I became a fan of her ability to move between cultures and spheres. She is both an American practitioner and an Iranian practitioner. So trying to bridge these two cultures and find universal values, I think adds a lot of worth to her work that I'm sure that we'll see in these upcoming slides. So that being said, I'll allow Marzia and Raha to continue from here. Thank you very much for joining us. One more thing, actually, we will, on the note of format, have about a 45-minute to an hour presentation, followed by about half an hour to 45 minutes for you to ask questions and receive answers from Raha and Marzia. We'll discuss exactly how that's done in terms of how you can pose your questions once the presentation is concluded. All right, that being said, Marzia, Raha, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Michael. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thanks for everyone also being here today with us. We do have a little bit of technical difficulties. That's why Raha and I are kind of like here together right now. But we'll get started, and then she will join again from another spot. So yeah, I'm Marzia. It's really great to be here, and this is Raha.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here, and I'm looking forward for the conversation.
And to start, I kind of want to get us all in the right framework and the right mindset for the conversation that we're going to have today. So to do that, what I would really like is to sort of set up the framework for the discussion today. And to do that, I'm going to use a few prompts that I hope will bring you into the here and the now of the topic. I welcome you to close your eyes and try to center yourself by visualizing spaces that relate to you and which are significant to you while we're doing this. So if you want, go ahead and close your eyes, and here goes. So take a moment to think about the room that you're sitting in and the building that resides in it. Center yourself in this space. Think about yourself. Are you an able-bodied person? Is English your first language? Would you consider yourself as an ethnic or racial minority? Would you consider yourself young or old? How do you know yourself to be apart or different from people you interact with every day? Are there aspects of your identity which you feel are not easily understood or relatable to others who you engage with on a daily basis? Now consider the social part you're playing by being where you are. Think about your impact on that room, on that building, and the impact of the building on you. Think about the future of the building, what you want for it, what you want for yourself from it. Now look back to decades before. Try to imagine the people who were there, in that room, in that building. Imagine their impact. Imagine their identities and their aspirations. Try to include them in the narrative of that space. But now go back even farther, to before the building existed. If it's relevant, before the institution existed. Imagine the stakeholders, the people who crossed over this land, who lived on this land, and not just the people, but the trees and animals and birds who are also all a part of it. If your eyes were closed, please open them now and keep this mindset for the rest of the talk. And let's return to the topic of hand. So I was having an interesting discussion with a dear friend of mine recently, and at some point she said, what is all this obsession with productivity? All this hectic productivity is just giving us anxiety and depression, and we're destroying the planet along with it. And that really stuck with me. And it made me think about this idea of productivity in our field a lot. In our field, productivity is building, quite literally. So the question is, if our collective values are substantiated through the places we invest in building, then how can design present opportunities for transformation? How can we include everyone in that frame? And not just everyone, but everything, plants, animals, the health of our planet. We don't pretend to have the answers. We just know that it is an important conversation to have. Well, I'd like to start by briefly introducing our office and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes. So Raha and I met about 10 years ago in Barcelona, and we were both active in teaching, designing, building, and research, and often our interests and therefore our work overlapped. In 2018, after realizing we're doing everything together, we set up our office, Ashrafi Zad Design. We pride ourselves on being a young and enthusiastic office. Our projects develop through collaboration and involvement of all members. With a team of just under 20 people overall, we believe that we're not enough alone and that our vision for the future can only be realized through our collective efforts. And the underlying question, which we always face, is how does what we do have any impact? How as designers can we change the status quo, promote equity and inclusion, or just design with a conscience? We hope to show you how we try to find answers to these questions through some of the projects which we will share with you now. In the summer of 2019, a local government organization assigned 15 architects to redesign a series of leftover urban spaces located in underserved neighborhoods in the inner city. The objective was to transform these car-dominated recess plots into vibrant public spaces. Plot number 6, which was the plot that we worked on, was generally used as a parking lot with a small urban green space to the north of the site. The lot is adjacent to 5 mostly residential buildings on the east side, with one religious community center, which is the one with the banner in front of it. Considering the social politics of top-down urban intervention, underserved communities have learned to believe that their rights and well-being are insignificant to urban planners and city officials. Consequently, we knew that before starting the project, the success or failure of it would depend largely on engagement and interest from the resident community and stakeholders. We started with a series of on-site meetings with low attendance and a lot of cynicism on behalf of the community. Locals responded defensively to our inquiries about their needs or desires for a small plaza space near their homes. They worried about the disruption of their routines and the relocation of their informal parking spaces to an area outside of their protective view. Mindful of this, we began to slowly build rapport and credibility with the community. Through acknowledging each participant's concerns, we were able to create an inclusive platform for communication that informed our creativity and decision-making while gaining trust. Back in the studio, we realized that we need to define a simple repetitive geometry flexible enough to take on different functional characteristics while lightly gesturing towards the aesthetic of a Persian carpet. So this is the site again, and this is our Persian carpet design implemented on the site. We took this design back to the community for their approval before moving to the construction process. The budget allotted by the city for design and construction was really small. And anyway, we were inclined to find creative, cheap, and ecologically aware solutions in the material sourcing process. Our team contacted local distributors to inquire about material leftovers with deficiencies. And through this strategy, we were able to source materials that otherwise would be considered waste materials, but also at a fraction of the anticipated cost. This approach actually also helped for a healthier rainwater drainage and reduction in urban heat island effect in the plaza.
For
Another benefit to using a simple and adaptive geometric. Sorry about that. Another benefit to using a simple and adaptive geometric pattern was the modularization of the construction system. Modular elements allow for streamlining the construction process by breaking down a large global design into smaller manageable pieces that are repeated to create a whole. And this also facilitated community participation and a feeling of agency in the construction process that would not otherwise be possible. During a week-long workshop led by Raha and accomplished by stakeholders, community members came together to construct the most ornamental elements of the geometric modules.
Okay, for plot number 6, municipality had a very low profile, which actually gave us the liberty to connect with users and develop trust much easier than if local government was more involved. Plot number 6 is a small-scale plaza adjacent to 5 mostly residential buildings. Intervention in the site was conditional upon stakeholder approval, and the challenge was establishing enough community trust to prevent the project from failing as a result of damage to the site by neighboring residents or by lack of maintenance later. Therefore, in advance of any design decision, we needed to gain community trust and involve the community as much as possible in the design and construction process to provide a sense of identity and ownership for stakeholders, and thus align design with stakeholder needs and ensure maintenance and care for the space moving forward. During the design process, we ensure involvement and create trust by responding to concerns shared by residents. For example, as designers, our go-to design decision would eliminate cars from any public space of value. But in listening to the users, we learned that no design proposal would be successful if it did not include parking space within plain sight of residents during all hours. This highlighted the need to take decisions that are not aligned with typical design approaches in order to acknowledge and integrate stakeholder concern in the project. More importantly, we realized that stakeholder participation during the construction process creates a sense of ownership and agency, as stakeholders feel pride and belonging to the place that they helped build. We learned that participation in construction will guarantee that this place will be taken care and maintained in the future.
Another project we'd like to present to you today is Silk Tree Park. Silk Tree Park is the first public domain project in Iran designed in accordance with spatial guidelines for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. The objective was to design more inclusive urban environments, especially catering to HOH individuals and the deaf. We explored how special needs can enrich design and how the design of natural and built environments can foster playful interaction and empathy between people of all walks of life. The design framework for this project began before the project existed. In the context of an urban research studio led by Raha while she was design director of Tehran Urban Innovation Center, along with a team of researchers. Raha was interested in focusing on overlooked communities and developing guidelines for making Tehran a more inclusive city. Together with her team of researchers, for this research project, she focused on deaf and hard of hearing individuals. And through that, she developed a handbook for deaf-friendly cities. You can see a few of the examples of those guidelines here. During this process, she worked a lot with the deaf community in Tehran, and there was a lot of challenges for her along the way. This is the location for the park, and to the north are the facilities for the deaf and hard of hearing community. And this is our proposal for the space. The urban furniture that was designed here was designed in a circular way, and there was this golden number radius that we had to adhere to. That radius was really important because if it was larger than that, people who are deaf cannot see each other when they're signing and they don't feel comfortable. And if it's too small, then it just feels too cramped. So we had this very specific radius that we had to adhere to in the design of the space. Another thing that we were really careful about was that we made sure that the entrance to the seating area was always within full view. And that if it wasn't the entrance area, everywhere else was sort of surrounded by plants and bushes. And this was really important to prevent anyone from suddenly coming up on people without their being aware of it, just because they can't hear if someone is walking by. So we were very careful to have these circular spaces that were only open at the entrance area, and then everywhere else they're kind of surrounded with green plants and bushes to prevent anyone from suddenly entering that space and surprising people. And we also designed parasols that needed to be above a specific height so that they didn't create too much contrast between shade and unshaded areas, as that contrast makes it difficult to follow a conversation when it's being signed. Also, it was important for the structure to have an incline to not obstruct the view. The form generation respected existing trees, and we augmented the green space by designing infrastructure that would allow for climbing plants to also grow up the wall. So you can kind of see how that process is happening here. And you can see all the different elements coming together. The plants are newly planted and it's early spring in this photo. We included a large circular space that was bigger than the other spaces where you could sort of fit several small sports fields in it that overlapped each other. And so at different times of the day, they could be used for different sports depending on who wanted to use the space. Something else that was really important about this project that was a bit of a challenge for us was that there was a height change of several meters in the site. And we wanted to make sure that it could be accessible for everyone. So in our design, we made sure that the pathway follows an incline throughout the site. What happened is that the flower beds, depending on the locations that they were at, they would have different heights. But if you were on the pathway, you could kind of come down and go up the pathway continuously without a step anywhere in between. And we also use plants and trees that are indigenous to the area. So our idea for this was to reduce water use and also the necessity for a lot of maintenance of the green spaces. And you can see the kids riding their bikes on that inclined pathway here. That infrastructure that you're seeing that's kind of yellow, we painted the infrastructure different colors, and it just is kind of that way until the green plants would sort of like take over all of it. And here's also an overall view of the park facing the main entrance where you can see all the parasols and the seating areas and also the different places to play. So after the project was completed, we invited members of Tehran's deaf community who Raha had worked with during the research phase to experience the park and share their feedback with us. And you can kind of see them experiencing the space here. It was an exciting moment for us to be able to see the conclusion of our work and if it was actually effective or not. The important thing we learned on this project is the right alchemy can make a disempowered or unseen group feel empowered, feel that they're valued. Whoever is the majority in a social framework tends to mandate how things ought to be, and that's an injustice. In this project, we tried to bring a justice of space to design to create equal inclusion and an opportunity to be seen and acknowledged.
What I really enjoyed about this project was the opportunity to learn about and engage with the deaf community. During my time as a design director at TWIC, I developed a research studio focused on inclusive urban design and specifically urban design for deaf and HOH individuals. This was a challenging process as connecting with the community and engaging with them was not easy. Ultimately, the process taught me that the best way for engaging with and better understanding the deaf community in Tehran was through playfulness as games. I'm happy that we developed a handbook which can serve as a guideline for designing for the deaf. It was a surprise that we received a commission for an urban park that by chance was also adjacent to a sports center for the deaf community. I saw this as an opportunity to incorporate all the research I had accomplished earlier and provide a space that is enriched through indirect participation and stakeholder interest, also the deaf community. Our objective was to offer a deaf-friendly urban space while integrating response to needs of young adults and children in the neighborhood who did not have spaces to play, as well as older demographics who will enjoy a space to hang out together and people watch, but also to respect the environment and local flora ecology by using plants, trees, shrubs, and flowers that are native to the area. In this case, the environmental and stakeholder interests were the most influential aspects of the design and construction process, while municipal decision, scale, and context were less impacting. Beryanak Plaza. Mobility infrastructure of Beryanak metro station located between a high traffic highway and a dense neighborhood space was the basis for this project. The city requested an urban plaza that could respond to the needs of local stakeholders as well as passengers passing through the station point each day from different parts of the city. For our office, this project was an opportunity to design a public space in a dense and working class part of the city while creating a dynamic environment for any age and easy access for all. The project is based a major highway, as you can see, which you can see on the left. The site itself is located directly in the center behind the metro station. You can see a slower traffic to the right. The neighborhood is a typical high density, below average income neighborhood in Tehran. As is obvious from the site location, our biggest design challenge was related to the urban context and high noise pollution that swaps the site from highway. We started out by doing real-time data mapping of noise level in different locations at specific hours of the day, based on various inputs from fast traffic and slow traffic lanes. We were able to identify points of lower sound pollution or points where sound was generally canceled out by other infrastructure. There are three general techniques for sound barriers which are widely used in design. In this case, we could either sync the project so that fast traffic noise passed over the site, or leave the project site, in other words, sync the highway, or finally place a sound barrier between the plaza and the highway. We study various trees and bushes which are native to the area and have the potential to act as strong sound barriers. This is the site prior to our intervention and after the completion of the metro infrastructure. Due to the existing high difference between the site and the highway, where the site is 4 meters below the highway. We decided that sinking the project is a strong starting point for general noise reduction. Ultimately, we combine several techniques. We place sound barrier directly off the highway, mostly in the form of native trees. The project takes advantage of the 4 meter direct drop and then incorporates a soft step incline of the neighborhood side where the traffic is slower, which can see to the right of the section. This is another view of the same strategy. You can see the stepping down from the neighborhood side of the project in the bottom left of the diagram. The side which connects to the highway is the direct drop, which can also be used on the high end to the plant tree and include flower boxes. The landforming approach was a helpful noise reduction tool, but it also creates a security problem. The area is generally not that safe. This drop-off, which shields the plaza from view neighboring buildings, further increased the problem. In response and keeping in mind community interests, we developed small retail spaces which are spread throughout the site and activated across a range of hours to keep the plaza safe and observed at all hours. It was important to us that these retail spaces could offer comfort and safety, but also create opportunity for community empowerment and growth. Small retail spaces are cheap enough for community members to rent. And the idea was to provide amenities for the neighborhood and allow for income opportunity, which are convenient and near homes, in order to develop spaces which could be useful to stakeholders and aligned with their values. We spent time meeting with the community. There was also the issue of activities and functions which could be accommodated in the public spaces of the plaza. And for that, we met with children and young adults in the neighborhood. The yellow spaces seen in the diagram are the public zone which can house various activities and which were the point of discussion for the young community there. These spaces include the skate rinks, a senior citizen hangout point, general games and cafe area. The dark blue spaces highlight the shops which surround the public spaces and which include retail types which align with the public space outside of them. You can also see the plaza spaces, the steps from the residential area toward the plaza and the direct drop on the highway side with beds for trees as well. All the feedbacks from the young folk in the area helped us to understand the needs for vibrant and colorful space with opportunity for different sports and games which we then spread out throughout the project space. And now you can see an animation about it.
So I'll just jump in here to say some important points. The space is completely accessible by ramp. You can also see that incline from the neighborhood area. All of the public spaces have some retail zones that surround them that sort of serve as the eyes for the public area to ensure that they're safe at all times. You can also see those green flower beds that Raha was talking about right now that also serve as a sound barrier, and they're kind of like higher up on the project. And they're also sort of like roof garden spaces on top of the commercial or the retail spaces. So this is just kind of an general overall view of the project.
And this is a view to the side, the ring. You can see the ring, the green roof there, and the steps. This is another part of the site, and more for young adults. They can play basketball and other games. And you can see here the connection of the site and with urban fabrics. And this is the view at night and how lights work with the site. We try to keep it light and bright. Another view of the site at night. You can see that children still playing in this part. And this is another view, and you can see how the project works with the metro infrastructure and urban context. Okay, in this project, the biggest challenge was related to the context and the scale. The context in the sense of the loud and disconnecting highway, and scale as it's related to the metro station and influx of daily users. The project needed to respond to not only the local in the neighborhood and be inclusive for the nearby residents, but it also needed to be flexible for passengers who are passing through and other day users who access the site on a daily basis. To meet the needs of all these users, we took advantage of social studies that were available about the neighborhood, as well as the demands of local government, and finally meetups with neighborhood residents. But at the end of the day, fundamental design decisions were conditional to the scales and context of the project. In conclusion, when comparing the process and condition, we understand that specific issues define the development process and outcome for each project. For example, if the space is smaller and users are both nearby and have direct contact with the place on a daily basis, the opportunity for users' participation and involvement during the design and construction process are much greater. On the other hand, then the project context of a functional scale grow behind a certain extent. As designers, we can no longer promise sustainable stakeholder participation as access to the users become more difficult, or users of different demographics and backgrounds are too many to incorporate in the process. In this case, we often fall back on available social studies, general interaction with the site, and directives from local government to include the stakeholder interest in the project. This push and pull is typical of most public.
However, there is an important indicator in all the projects introduced so far, which hasn't been addressed yet. And that is that they're all located in Tehran. Tehran is a sprawling city. It's 22 kilometers long and 46 kilometers wide, with a population of over 10 million people. The dashed line that you can see in the diagram signifies a major east-west artery that splits the city in two. Near the center of that division is that little icon, that's the Freedom Tower, which is a significant urban landmark, and it also defines a sort of northwest access in the city. So what's really important is that when you move up through the city, north of the line, residents become more affluent. And the geography of this region, which was originally green, sort of forests and fruit orchards, has over time become the places where rich people build high rises and towers. And then south of the line, there are these historic districts in the city. And as you move further south, residents become more poor and infrastructure is lacking. And there are also just generally less green parks or even urban trees in this area. So the projects that we presented earlier are all really close to this line, or they're south of it, which means that they're all sort of in more underserved neighborhoods in the city. And what's really important to keep in mind is that the design challenges we faced in these projects, whether it was local government or lack of community trust or underrepresentation, all of these issues were related to this locality and this particular context. If we were designing the same project to the north of the city, residents would not push for a design where they could watch their cars in the middle of a public space, as what happened in Danga, plot number 6. But they would all have private parking and probably a security guard to watch over them and watch over everything for them. And so this big difference, I think, really impacts how we look at design in general. Our sensitivity towards spatial justice and equitable spaces relates to our understanding of the importance of offering a sense of pride, identity, and well-being for communities who feel overlooked and underrepresented. Residents in the areas that we were showing you in the projects before, they don't have this peace of mind to worry about the environment, or they don't have the luxury to afford precious natural materials in the construction of their spaces. And what we learned is that it's really important to acknowledge their concerns, the concerns of the communities we serve, and design spaces which adhere to their values and celebrate their identity. But if it was a different context, we have the opportunity to approach similar issues in a different way. So we know what's happening to the planet. We do care about the environment. We do care about not flooding our public spaces with cars. But that we can only afford to pay attention to these things when the context allows it or when the brief of the project allows it. So as an example of this mindset, we also want to present another project for you today, which is designed for a community in Norway, and it responds to the concerns and interests of that community. So this design proposal was contextualized in Hønefoss, Norway. It's meant to represent new types of urban development for the world. We submit this project for Aeropan 16 together with Mateo Sartori and Honorata Grezisikoska. Her surname is a little difficult for me. And we actually won a special mention in the design award. So our first design tenet was to care for the environment and the existing ecology. We did a lot of extensive studies on local plant and animal life. And then in turn, after that, we designed what we hope will be a resilient neighborhood, which celebrates and cares for biodiversity, ecological productivity, and connection to the environment. Here you can see an overview of the entire proposal. There's a car sharing station and bus station that are placed at either extent of the neighborhood, and the main road is natural cobblestone to promote slower traffic and other pathways that are also water permeable. And you can also sort of see our approach to agriculture, where there was this existing agricultural plot that we just maintained in the area. And then there's some smaller permaculture plots that you can also see. And then of course, within the greenhouses, we also have smaller orchards for things like berries and fruit trees. At an urban scale, all the buildings are oriented direct south to optimize solar gains and sustain growth. The buildings are placed with a minimum of 12 meters distance back to front to ensure solar capture. And the building alignment and spacing are optimized to enhance that east and west daylighting as well throughout the master plan. And here you can really sort of see our approach. I'm going to show, you can sort of see how each one of the spaces, the greenhouses, they also have rooftop gardens, and then there's these outdoor spaces as well, where that would support ideally permaculture and other types of planting. So we believe that shared living allows for infrastructure which promotes health and well-being through flexible uses of common space and shared use of luxury spaces. And what we did in this project is that we evaluated and developed a range of shared use and community spaces, from the more private zones that are in the greenhouses all the way up to these very large urban plazas. And all of this was with the goal of creating safe and comfortable environments which encourage social interaction. And our idea is that more social interaction promotes a sense of well-being. And you can sort of see here how those greenhouse communes are organized and they interact with each other. They're creating various indoor and outdoor activity spaces. And the neighborhood plazas enclosed by housing complexes offer shared social and activity spaces, including playgrounds and performance spaces and outdoor sports. So all of this was happening. And here is the existing trees that are kind of outside of the project. And there was a general slope that I didn't note before, but that's really important in the project. So if you look at each of the greenhouse podiums, you can see this sort of a darker black space. And that's the underbelly basically of each one of the projects, where we would keep all of the mechanical rooms. So this overall neighborhood offers 3 urban scale plazas that are along that cobblestone road and the market hall, which I noted earlier. All of those spaces are surrounded by local commercial spaces that include restaurants, cafes, local boutiques, and crafts. And here you can kind of see our general idea of what the public spaces would be like, and also sort of following that urban incline that I was talking about earlier. Our proposal for the self-nurturing city intends to close the organic waste loop by collecting and storing organic waste beneath the housing podiums for composting. So this was what I sort of alluded to earlier. And the produced compost is then distributed throughout those greenhouses, in the orchards and rooftop gardens of the greenhouses as natural and organic fertilizers to support plant and vegetable growth. And this sort of ties into the next important thing about the project, was that we were really trying to develop an infrastructure that promotes 0-kilometer food growth and closed consumption loops. We studied a lot of the products in Norway that were typically imported. And actually Norway is a huge importer of products that they could potentially produce on their own. So we were sort of looking for opportunities to support that local growth that could happen at a smaller scale, at a smaller agricultural scale that has a better ecological footprint. And the idea would be that stepping away from industrial agriculture could sort of create more of a better interaction with our natural environments and better ways to sort of take care of our natural environments as well. And the proposal includes a boost of domestic growth for several of those staples that I was talking about earlier. And you can see some of the greenhouse commune types here. We actually, we ultimately developed like 7 or 8 building types that are used throughout the project. So some of them are smaller, that can be like single family or 2 to 3 family homes. And then there's these larger communes that I'm showing to you right now, where you would sort of have this more private space within that massing, where you might have like your living room and your bedrooms and all of that. And then you'd have more shared spaces as you come out into the courtyard that's inside the greenhouse space. And you would also have that opportunity for sort of small scale productivity. Our idea was that these internal greenhouse spaces would also be really fun and interactive spaces to be, so you can sort of see how we imagine them to be working. So on the ground floor of the greenhouse spaces, our ideas were that they could be used for shared office spaces or fab labs, other type of like co-working and services and work that would be in the services industry. But then you would also have some terrace spaces that could be used for social events like a barbecue or even a wedding, yoga. And then you would have these personal terraces that you could sort of see and interact with in the greenhouse based on them. So in general, our approach acknowledges the importance for a local sustainable production and closed consumption loops and caring for the environment and sharing of resources. And in our proposal, we propose that in designing for a time of uncertainty, we can also find the fundamental laws of a livable future, which is care, share, and self-sustain. So as you can see, this is sort of a very different sort of project than the projects that we showed previously that were located in Iran. But the big idea, I think the big takeaway from all of that is how can we really understand the community that we're designing for, the community that we want to serve, how we can actually maybe perhaps sort of set aside our typical ideas of being amazing design gods and instead sort of listen to the communities that we're designing for and hear them and acknowledge them and sort of act as a mediator, putting our knowledge and skills to task to sort of create environments that can really be helpful for everyone. So as our first question was posed, that how can design present opportunities for transformation? Our answer would be by striving for design that enriches daily life, improves the environment, and offers equitable spaces for all the communities we serve. And something else that we think is really important is that we can actually reframe the narrative around sensitive issues, such as identity and placemaking, especially representation, while also creating a platform for discourse and engagement that is more constructive and more inclusive. And thanks to everyone for your time and attention today. We're really looking forward to questions.